So my first book, I just sat down after dinner and the kids were doing their homework, and I sat down and wrote one page or two every night, and I did no plotting. I just wrote it and imagined it, and there it was. I look back now after, having to edit it over and over, that it was pretty remarkable that I had zero plotting.
Welcome to the Delos Diaries, where we explore the untamed frontier of writing and creativity. Join your host, Paul Delos Santos, a writer and self-published author, as he navigates the ever-evolving world of storytelling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Delos Diaries. I'm Paul Delos Santos, your host, and today we're joined by Robin Landry. How you doing today, Robin?
Good. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing great, doing great. I always lead off the same question to start off every of these episodes. Every single guest gets asked this question. So, what got you into writing? Because every writer is different.
I couldn't even tell you. I have always been a reader since I learned to read from my older sister in kindergarten.
Mhm.
So I just love books so much. And then eventually you get to the point where you say, I think I can do this.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was a reader, and then what happened was, like, similar to you, I basically just discovered that writing is a good way to be a good creative outlet for myself. So it was really just one of those things where it felt right that I was a writer. And then from there on, it kind of just continued to career in journalism and all the fun stuff that goes with it. But the one thing that stood out to me about your biography was that you're also a singer-songwriter. So
Oh, yes. I did start writing songs before books.
yeah, so is there any parallels that you see with that process? Writing and writing books.
Well, songs you have to be way more condensed, but it's basically a story, but it's like the outline or the synopsis of what happened.
Hmm.
And you have to use more poetry because poetry can tell more in less words. Because you
Yeah,
can use metaphors. And
yeah.
so,
Go ahead.
so anyway, it's a different form of writing, and I think it's more has to be more disciplined because you don't have the leeway of 500 pages. You have one page.
Yeah. So how is that career like for you? I'm always interested to hear about that aspects of people's lives and hear and how ultimately what kind of impact did it play on your writing career?
Being a musician,
Yeah.
well, I had one publisher say my work really has a good rhythm to it,
Oh,
which
okay,
I
that makes
found
sense.
amusing because when I write dialogue, I tend to get into the rhythm of it,
Hmm.
and there is rhythm in dialogue.
Yeah, there is. Overall rhythm and dialogue is kind of important. So, like, how do you approach that process? It, like, like what? It just seems like dialogue for many people can either be hit or miss. I think that's a very big thing. So, overall, like, how do you approach writing dialogue and using that rhythm? And what tips do you have for that?
Oh, I think for dialogue, you just listen to the voices in your head and get paid for it. No.
Yeah, no, that makes
But
sense.
seriously, when you create a character, you just listen. It's like reading only the books in coming from your head.
Hmm.
So once you start the conversation, it just starts moving along, and I find it really easy to write dialogue, but hard to write scenes, descriptive.
Yeah, I sensed I had the same problem when I was earlier in my career, that dialogue, and especially in journalism, it's one of those things where if you need to bulk up a story, so to speak, like get to your word count, you just load up a
Hmm.
quote, just load up as
Hmm.
many quotes as you can. So that is actually a weakness of mine initially, was that dialogue would be, I'm using it as a crutch, and in reality it's like we can show more detail. So how did you kind of learn that skill to kind of balance dialogue with prose?
How did I learn how to write dialogue?
No, prose, the prose side,
Prose. Oh, the prose part.
the prose leading into the dialogue.
You really have to get into that Zen state of your imagination and just let it flow. If I think about it too much, it pulls me back out of it.
Is that something
So,
you learned from your writing from your music days?
yeah, you learn to hone the channeling that you do. I mean, with so many songs and now so many books, you just learn to listen really well and to get into that state where you're on the opposite side of your brain you're normally in, which, to get through life, you need the other side.
Hmm.
You can't stay in your imagination very long.
Yeah, no, yeah, I get that. What do you think is more difficult for you? What did songwriting come naturally, or was there the same learning process as it came when it came to writing a book?
It came pretty natural. I
Mhm.
would take it from the point of someone would play a chord progression, or I would, and then I would hear what it was trying to say. And like one of my songs is coming from the point of view of a car, yet you
Mhm.
think it's a woman, but the music just told me, what if a car could talk to you? What would it say?
Oh wow, that's that. I mean, that's some deep writing ability because you're able to take like these prompts in your head. It seems like just creating on the fly and everything else. And does that do you use the same approach to generate ideas for your novels and short stories?
To generate those ideas, they just come out of my research because I just love to. I call it research, but I just am curious and I like to read. So I call it research so it doesn't look like I'm just reading a book.
Yeah, it's weird because I think a lot of things is funny because one of the people I always I like following productivity people on YouTube, and the one thing they always say is when you read something, your intent is to create something. It should be to create. So is that kind of where you get like you mentioned that with reading? So overall, is that kind of the same philosophy a little bit?
Yeah, it's almost like you take in so much, it has to come back out. Like
Hmm.
you can't just keep taking in without putting back out because you'll just get full.
Hmm.
And it's almost like a release to let it back out in your words and your ideas. And I find something like Instagram really helps me because it's almost like I'm writing a book as I go. I'm researching, telling my thoughts on a particular subject, and then the next day I'll have another one. And then I can put them all together because it's all right there for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's just one of those things where you just put it all together and create. I mean, that's the joy of being a writer is that you have that luxury to create. So you created a lot. You created first initially middle grade readers for your children. So
Hmm.
what inspired you to do that? Because I think a lot of parents ideally would love to tell stories, but it's like one of those things where it's like I don't know how to structure it properly, and you just wrote the stories for your children. So overall, how did that process start, and why did you do it?
I did it because I had an audience, and we
Hmm.
all want audiences. And
Hmm.
here was mine captive. And I had read so many stories to them, like the Goosebumps and all these chapter books. And I thought, well, I can do that.
Hmm.
After going through 30 of each Animorphs and all the books, I thought, well, this is a fun outline. And every genre kind of has its scaffolding, I call it. And once you get the scaffolding in your head, you just plug in your ideas and you start with one great what if.
Yeah, like I think the question, like a lot of like I think one of the tips I give new writers is always ask what if. I think
Hmm.
that's a good way to really approach like if you're stuck because what if this happens? What if they went through this? And it's a good way to really continue the story because it just feels like, and I think South Park really is a good example like but if when when they write their script they always add that but if or and then so it's always that fun little thing. So how did your kids initially react to like, oh, this is an original story just for us?
Oh, I don't think they were old enough to even think about it. They just went, okay, what happens next? So
Mhm.
I would write it while they were at school and then come back and read the next chapter. And kids are really difficult. You have to hold their attention. You really got to work at it.
Mhm.
And so I left each chapter hanging so they'd want to hear the next one the next day. And it had to be plausible for kids and in
Mhm.
their language.
Yeah, that's always interesting to me how authors approach the art of writing to a different children's audience because it's a very difficult thing for me personally because I used to teach high school and I'm like, okay, these kids I can kind of communicate a little bit better, but when it comes to like elementary and even borderline middle school, these kids have a lot more questions. They'll find a plot hole quicker than say a passive reader in high school. So how like keeping their interest was one thing, but also just keeping your story straight, it seemed like it had to be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it was. But luckily, these books are written so fast. It was easier to keep it all together because I could do one in 2 weeks rather than stretched out over a year.
Mm,
But having a chart really helps.
yeah.
A family chart so you don't mix up the people.
Hmm.
And happily, the kids will tell me when I do.
Hmm.
I have
Well.
had my book at a local school here in California, and the
Mhm.
kids read it together, and then they showed me a point plot I might have missed.
That's always fun, and I think that's the crazy thing is that I always tell authors to try and speed up the feedback loop with your audience in some way, shape, or
Hmm.
form. It seems like you were able to do that early on and get the feedback loop from your kids and see, oh, okay, I could do this with that, and get their interest and see how it worked, and then make the change later on if it didn't work.
That is a good idea. I never thought about it. I was just working with what I had.
Hmm.
I was no longer a musician because I had kids, so I needed a creative outlet, and there
Hmm.
they were, stuck with me.
Yeah, and now you have a captive audience, and some people can give you feedback. I think that's what writers always look for, in a sense. They're always looking for feedback about their writing because they always want to know how they can improve the story, how they can move the story forward, and stuff like that. But I feel like they don't know how to approach it. And you took it from a different perspective, where you had an audience first, and then changed the approach a little bit. So how do you kind of take that approach to your later novels for the adult content? Like, how do you get feedback for your novels?
Uh, the same thing, older friends reading. But
Mhm.
what I'm doing now with Instagram is I'm basically writing a book and I'm getting instant feedback. And they also give me more things to look at. Like, and they'll say, no, this isn't right. Look over here. And
Mhm.
so it keeps growing and growing. And my audience has grown so fast. It's hard to keep up with all the information they give me in real
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I just from talking with you, like there's the two classic two archetypes of writers, plotters and pantsers, and you seem to be somewhere in the middle initially, and then you moved into more planning more. Is that a safe assessment?
Yeah. Yes. I need
Yeah,
to plan more because I don't want to waste my time.
yeah. I think writers. I think the more they develop their voice and confidence in the art of writing, they become more planners by default. Unless you're Stephen King, who plots everything on the fly. I mean, I can't imagine doing that, honestly. But honestly, it's one of those things where I'm interested in just, just having that feedback initially come in, that instant feedback you're getting. It's like I chose the format of a serial novel for my first book. As
Hmm.
I'm writing it right now, I chose a serial novel. And do you feel that episodic like approaches like that, where you're kind of giving the reader parts of it early to get that feedback on the story to gauge their interest, is vital?
I think that would be a really good idea in a series because you can see from the in a what do you you're doing one at a time, like a
Mhm.
chapter, or do you mean a whole book
Episodes, they end with
episode?
cliffhangers. Kind of similar to what you did with your
Mm.
kids, where they end on a cliffhanger, or like a TV show kind of like model.
Hmm. But I find that as you write, it also expands. It's you might have just one idea, but as you write, other ideas will come in. So I think an episode could go on forever.
Mhm. It can go on for, like, books can always go on forever. I think that's the beauty of books, and it's you, the author, who limits them. So, like, how do you overall just plan out, like, the chapters as you're writing in your writing process?
I usually have a bullet point, and I just go from the beginning to the end,
Mhm.
and then I wait, come back, and say what's working, what's not, because I don't like to get stuck as I'm writing, not knowing what's going to happen.
Is that your advice for new writers, is just to go for it?
Make an outline. It's not a serious outline. It can just be here's my one question. I know the end. How do I get there? And then
Mhm.
I kind of give each chapter a bullet point. And then when I go to write it, I never have a down day of what am I going to write? It's all there. So I just elaborate on that one sentence for each chapter. And then it goes pretty quick.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm kinda similar, where I write from bullet point to bullet point in my outline as well, so it's very, very helpful to outline. I think for many experienced writers, I think they think in that brain set, where they're thinking, "I'm going from point A to point B to point C to point D," so it's very helpful for new writers. So how did that approach kinda help you with your first full-length, adult novel?
Oh, well, the first full length novel I wrote was I just learned to, I taught myself to type, and I was on a manual typewriter, if you can imagine.
Oh, I can. I used some of those as a kid. I love those things. I fell in love with manual typewriters, and the only thing that irked me was that, because I was in a keyboarding class coincidentally, what happened was I would push the button and it would not register fully. So what would happen is I would have to push harder and actually would create an error. So, it
Hmm.
was a different experience. So I was trying to, like, five-finger key it. I see why older journalists type the way they do, because of their typewriter background. But overall, like, yeah. So tell me about that experience with your first book.
So, my first book, I just sat down after dinner, and the kids were doing their homework, and I sat down and wrote one page or two every night, and I did no plotting. I just wrote it and imagined it, and there it was. I look back now after, having to edit it over and over, that it was pretty remarkable that I had zero plotting.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And truthfully, like, how many iterations of editing did you go through? Because you mentioned before as one of those things where you wrote it on the fly.
Well, it was very inexperienced, so there
Hmm.
was a lot of extra words. You know how that goes.
Yeah, it is. It's always fun. I mean, was this self-published or did you find a publisher?
I found a publisher like 30 years later.
Oh wow! So that's really good. I mean, in terms of how, like, some stories just live forever and just ultimately find their legs later on. But it's interesting because you write. I mean, I don't know. Romance is my blind spot in writing. Like, and then you have this concept of another layer, the subgenre of post life regression. So, like, first of all, walk us through what post life regression is, because I'm interested in it, because it sounds very interesting from just the steps from what you described.
Well, past life regression, which is something I ended up learning to do, it just basically puts your conscious self to sleep, and then you are in a dreamlike quality, and they ask you questions, and you describe your dream. So you're actually dreaming wide awake or
Oh.
in a very relaxed state. And they say that your higher self will guide you through past lives.
Hmm.
So I thought, how interesting would that be if you actually had one and it was as real as anything, and it changed your current life because you were different in your past life, and you were different because you were a different person than you were back then. And what if
Yeah.
you got to your past life and you said, you get to the first Southern ball and you realize that all these men are speaking to you as if they all know you.
Hmm.
And there's your husband, and you think, uh-oh, what kind of person was I?
Yeah. I mean, that
Or,
sounds so interesting, like, just describing that, because I feel that that's like a helpful visualization process for creativity.
yeah, it is. And I think that I must slip into that pretty easily, especially while driving.
I know a lot of writers talk about they get ideas from their dreams, but that seems so interesting that you can do it from a relaxed state. Because I, I mean, that would be just that's really that's I find that to be amazing. Truthfully, that you can do that, because I relax, I fall asleep, and and then I don't remember what I dreamed about. So,
So that's basically what past life regression is. You're just hypnotizing somebody so that they are conscious just enough to be able to tell you what they're dreaming.
oh,
It's
okay.
And dreams are pretty real
Hmm.
when we have one.
Yeah.
But you can't remember them because you're in a different state. We keep you in that state long enough and take notes. And a lot of people I've done it to, they don't remember anything they said.
Oh wow.
And they look wide awake. They're just sitting there talking to you, and they have no idea.
Sounds
So,
like a creative exercise you can do. Like, just I think that's in the same boat. Like, truthfully, like I think it's the next step. Like, just what you described. I feel that's like the next step of free writing. Like, just like the next step. Like, you just brain dump whatever is on your mind, like in a free write. But this is a little more focused and a little more, I think, creative to a degree, because sometimes you brain dump, it's like a lot of gibberish. This feels like there's a cohesion to it, and I feel it's a great concept. And I was interested in it when I saw your biography and what you wrote about. So, um, just why specifically romance with the past life regression? Why do you think they kind of go together?
because I was reading nothing but romance back then.
Oh, okay. That's
So,
that's a good answer. That's it. I mean, that's why we all like to write what we are readers of. And I think that's a good point to make. So, what are some of your favorite things to write? Like, in terms of, like, what are some of the things about the romance genre do you appreciate?
um, the the way they can get into history, because
Mhm.
they always seem to be time traveling in some way or form. So you can study a whole lot about history, and then you have to figure out a way to get your either the historical uh, husband boyfriend to get into this time, or you to go into their time. And what are the consequences of you being in a different time? How would
Mhm.
you how would your reactions betray you that you're not from that time?
Mhm.
So that's what I had really I had a lot of fun with, because it was a Civil War and there was black servants, and this woman is from our time. So when the servant spilled a tray, she jumps down and starts helping clean it up. Well, that's not what you do.
No, that's interesting. That you like. How much research do you do when you do these fictional, like historic fiction? Like how much research goes in to making sure that you're accurate to the time period as you bring in common current day mindsets?
A lot. You read books and books and books and movies and as many things as you can immerse yourself in to that particular time. And I find that the clothes too really put you in to the
Mhm.
time. Why did they wear that? I know what a kilt's all about now. Like, they actually wore kilts, not in my book, but they wore kilts because the grass was always really high and wet. And if they had pants on, they'd always be wet. And then they could also unwrap the kilt to sleep in it like a sleeping bag, it was very long. It wrapped around several times on them.
Mm.
And things like that that are really interesting to me.
Yeah, that's an interesting fact. I always wondered why they wore kilts. I mean, it's now making sense of why you would do that, especially given where they're historically from. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, that makes a
Tall
lot of sense.
grass.
Yeah, tall grass. Overall, like, how do you balance like being accurate to the historical elements to being imaginative? I mean, just being able to take some creative freedoms with the settings and such.
Well, it's getting more difficult to stick with what's in books now because I research alternative history. And so I see things with a different light. Like, I see buildings that are melted. I don't see caves. I see
Mm,
something happen to melt brick, and now we have red hills with caves in them. Well, what
mm,
if you went inside and those were openings to some fabulous building?
mm.
Like in the Grand Canyon, they discovered one of those caves was filled with Egyptian artifacts and mummies. It's closed off to the public now, of course.
Of course it
But
is.
what if it weren't?
Yeah, and
I could I could have a whole story talking about it. I
you
mean, write a
can.
novel.
You have this innate ability, it feels like, to just come up with like those what ifs and those prompts and everything like that. Like, I feel that you can truly help writers unlock some things in their processes. Like, why do you think that is a case for you, that you're able to come up with so many ideas just from you mentioned writing a song about a car and taking it to a different perspective? So it's just stuff like that, that's so interesting to me, because it's just like your mind seems to work in that creative space constantly.
Well, they say if you want to be a writer, have as miserable a childhood as you can survive,
Oh.
because you tend to disassociate.
Mhm.
And then it, in a time when most kids would be outwardly focused as they grow, you become inwardly focused and more introverted.
Mhm.
So
Oh.
you just thank your parents and move on.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's how it is. Like, I think, like I said, you have a really creative mind, and it really
Why, thank
shows.
you.
Just talking with you, just to coming up with a story idea about the Egyptian caves in the Grand Canyon on the fly. You came up with an idea that's like that would be very intriguing, like for many like ones who like the adventure mystery type story. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just really just truly like impressive to me. So, you wrote your 14 books. Why did you go back to
So
music?
far. Oh, the youngest child started driving, and I thought, oh, I can go back to music now. So I
Mhm,
did, and I did a couple solo albums. And writing's always just, I write anyway. Now
mhm,
and I was on Amazon. Oh, I forget what you call it, a reviewer.
mhm,
Back when Amazon rated their reviewers, and it was like this big contest that you could have the number in front of your name. And I got up into the very 100s, and it was a brutal business.
mhm.
And I would meet writers. They would write to me and thank me. Pretty soon, conversations happened. And one writer said, "Are you a writer also?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You should send something into my publisher." So that was the romance novel I sent in 30 years later.
Oh, wow.
And it
That's
was a
interesting.
really good exercise to review books because I would read with that in mind, the plotting, the what did people like about it? What did I like about it? I didn't just passively read. I read it like it was an assignment. So
Yeah,
after 1,500 reviews of things, so I
you're
just
able to.
moved on after that.
Oh,
It gave
wow.
me a lot of discipline and insight into how writers did things.
Yeah, I'm guilty of not doing that until recently. I used to read fiction passively, and now I'm reading for craft and analyzing it and everything like that. So I think that's a good trait that you had early on. That really, I want to say, caught you up in faster in terms of writing like prose fiction because you already had the background in writing music, so you have a creative mind. It sped you up. I feel that sped you up in a little bit of the craft aspect because you read so many books and reviewed so many books and you treated it like a homework assignment. So I think
Yes,
that do you feel that that's kind of what contributed to your ability to kind of pick up writing so many books and learning the craft quicker?
I think so. All you have to do in life is pay attention, and everything happens for you. Just turn your attention to anything and put in your 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours, as they always say. Do you listen to music while you're writing?
No, it's
Really?
too it's too distracting. I start taking music apart. Pretty soon I'm over on a
Oh,
piano or my guitar and I'm learning it, so I can't do it.
can't do it. Okay,
No.
like, I mean, because I remember like a lot of writers they're either in one boat or the other. Like I listen to ambient sound because writing or lo-fi, which is non lyrical. Because if I listen to something with lyrics, I'm singing along. Like it's just one of those things where
Right?
it's a terrible habit when you're writing. So, just do you feel that like I think some genres of music open themselves more to storytelling than others?
Oh, country music's my favorite.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, that's what I was kind of getting into. Like, why do you think that some music genres lead into storytelling better than say like others?
I think it's a lot of it's the audience. Country music is a very basic. You've got your farmers and your people who work with nature and livestock, and
Mhm,
they call country music four chords and the truth.
mhm,
So they're very basic. There's no fluff, there's no illusions. So their songs are going to be very about what they do. Hank Williams is just laid out there. But then you have younger kids who are still idealistic. Maybe they're more frenzied. They might want more beat, more excitement.
mhm.
All their loves are so big and tragic.
Yeah, everything feels like a big deal when you're a young adult.
Big deal about nothing. Taylor
Yeah,
Swift, big deal about nothing.
yeah, and I think that's why she's so popular. Is it's because and I think as her audience grows up, she's gonna have to adapt with it as
Hmm.
her songwriting. I think that's something that's always interesting to me. So, how did you adapt your writing to your life situation? Sometimes, I mean, it's kind of like as you move forward in life, you gain some life experiences, and how did you kind of reflect that in your writing?
Um, I think it's almost like I slowed down. I was not in
Mhm,
such a frenzy to get to the next page or to hurry the process. Now I just enjoy it so much, realize I enjoy it, read like I enjoy it, and don't worry about things so
mhm.
much. And
Yeah.
just be open and listen. I listen, listen, listen.
Mhm,
I listen to podcasts, I listen to people talk, I read. It's all about listening so I can catch their way of dialogue. Like
mhm.
I just love listening to people. I listen to
Yeah.
podcasts all day.
How's it feel to be on one?
Well, it's a little weird.
Oh, really? Like, oh, that's
I
fun.
mean, I love mine. I pick the voice you like and the
Mhm.
personality, and I just enjoy them so much.
Yeah. It's just an interesting it's a nice thing to be able to hear other people's perspectives and just kind of build on what you know and listening to people. Just, you mentioned your creative process earlier. Do you have any routines that you kind of go through? What do you have any like specific things that you have to do before you get into a writing space? Like for me, for example, I have to have a water and kind of stretch a little bit and kind of get ready for a session.
Hmm. I usually do it at the same time every day or thereabouts because I like to have the extra things done, the
Mhm.
bills taken care of, the workout done, so I can just relax. And I have a couple of hours a day that is I don't have to do anything else. But the routine helps.
Yeah.
Like when it comes that time, It's like I'm automatically ready to sit down.
How important is that routine for writers trying to build readership and write books and novels and short stories?
I think it's imperative. It's like an exercise routine. You couldn't possibly work out, randomly every few days. You'd never get anything done. You need the routine so that it's like your time,
Hmm.
and you just do it. You have to make everything a habit, and that takes 21 days.
Yeah, it does. Like, do you feel that you developed this routine and not perfected it per se, but more honed it over the years as you move forward, as you moved from writing your children's stories to now where you're at in your career? Do you like, well, how was it in the beginning, like writing those children's stories to now it is now?
Uh, the difference? I was always trying to write so that I could be published, and I was always worried about that. And was
Hmm.
I writing the right thing? And what about the audience? And now I don't worry about that stuff. I've
Hmm.
learned to just write what I write, and anybody that wants to read it or listen is a gift.
Yeah.
And, and let it go.
How do you let it go? I mean, I know a lot of beginning writers tend to over analyze, like, oh my god, is my book going to sell? How do I get published? They put the cart before the horse
Hmm.
sometimes, and they're gonna think about all the things that could go wrong before actually writing the book. So how do you kind of build that thick skin to not really worry too much about like how it's going to be received or how it's going to sell or if you can get published? Like, how do you kind of put that in the back of your mind just so you can just focus on the one task that writers are averse to doing sometimes, which is write?
Uh, I do it because I enjoy it. I
Yeah.
write the book, or you think of one person, like on Instagram. I have this one, the people that DM me all the time. So I think they ask questions, so they are my audience, and they want to focus on something, and I enjoy so much the feedback of them saying, "Oh, I didn't think of that," or "You really woke something up in me." And I think my writing now is more like waking up things in other people. Like we're sharing so that we all grasp what's out there at the same
Mhm.
time.
Yeah. That's a healthy mindset to have because I think a lot of beginning writers need to hear that you're doing it not because you're trying to be famous because it's like being a pro athlete. I mean, very few of us will ever hit the likes of Rebecca Yaros or or Sarah Mass or even Brandon Sanderson. So I feel that we just have to kind of enjoy the ride. I think that's the important
Hmm.
thing. Enjoy the process that goes into it. So, you know, what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced when it comes to the publishing world and songwriting world?
Well, it was what was meant to happen, kind of just did. I didn't try to get published. I was just helping someone else.
Hmm.
And he said, "Why don't you do this?" So I did.
Hmm.
And I find that what you put out comes back. So help other people. And you never know which person is going to be the one to hold the key to your success. And you don't even think about it.
Hmm.
Just, I'm just trying to help
Yeah,
because
I think
it's so enjoyable to help other people.
it is always enjoyable to help other people. I think that's the thing that I like. It's just so underrated how much helping people that makes us feel good.
Hmm.
I think the general consensus is that the more you help, the more you'll get out of it. And the fact remains is you help someone, they offered an opportunity, and you ran with it. And I think that's the biggest lesson we could take from this is that you never know who you help and how they can help you back.
And I think if the universe wants certain things out and it kind of puts it in a bunch of people's heads
Mhm.
and they see which one will carry it forward. And once you start the ball rolling, it's like everything lines up behind you to push it for you. It almost like nothing succeeds like success.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, when you start going downhill, it's like the universe lines up behind you to help you. Like,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that where you want to go? Okay,
Mhm.
I got it.
I mean, it just feels like you've done a lot in terms of your creative career. Like like how did it feel? Like you obviously were a singer songwriter prior to being a published author. What provided you the bigger high? Seeing your book in public or being able
Hmm.
to perform in front of people your songs that they loved?
That's a tough question because it's kind of ends up in the same place.
Yeah, yeah.
You're still relaying, you're telling a story in one form or another. With singing, it's more about emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting the feedback immediately. Like I loved going to schools and taking my book into the schools because the kids, oh, I love them.
Mm-hmm.
They're so much fun.
Yeah.
And then singing in front of adults, it's like when you see people cry when they hear hallelujah, you just
Mm-hmm.
think, wow, I nailed that one. Okay, I get it. Because you got to get skillful enough that that you can leave all that behind and just emote. But until you get to a certain 10,000 hours,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that. And I think writing, you have to write your million words, and then it frees you. You got the skill down, and it's like typing. You just make motions from then on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think. I'm sure you don't think about typing.
No, I don't think about breathing either. And I think that was the one thing I used to stress to early high school, middle school writers is they would overthink when they're writing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, do you like, and I would tell them, okay, breathe. And they would start hyperventilating. Like, what do you mean breathe? I mean, they get nervous. I'm like, what do you mean breathe? So they start thinking about breathing. I'm like, that's your issue. You're thinking about something that's a natural process, and creating and writing should be a natural process. Just write and we can fix it later. And
Mm-hmm.
it was the most effective method I used to teach writing to people. And I think it's just so helpful. So when you mentioned that 10,000 hours and you mentioned keyboard, like typing on the keyboard, you don't think about it. I'm very much the same way.
So you taught writing in school?
Yeah, I taught high school and middle school English.
Oh, nice.
So it was a fun experience when I was a teacher. And, I think a lot of kids these days like undervalue their voice just because of how they're being inundated with social media and how they feel like they're inadequate. And it was a very tough place to really tell them like your voice matters, and your voice, not only you have a voice, and this is your chance to kind of show it. And I think that was my goal, was to implement a love of writing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's that's going to be that's going to be an episode down the line when I build. But I mean, overall, that's kind of how I approached writing, teaching writing, and I love writing, and I want to share this passion with other people. So, well, what are you currently working on? I mean, do you have any books lined up, writing songs? I mean, what are you working on right now?
Well, I don't write songs anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but what I'm working on now is I'm trying to decide where I want my research to take me that I've been working on Instagram so hard. And one of the thoughts I had, which I asked ChatGPT, I
Of
said,
course.
"Hey, Chat, what do you think if I took all of my Instagram posts and each one is a separate subject, or sometimes I'll go on to a part 2, 3, 4,
Mm-hmm.
and put that all together in a book because people keep asking me, where's the book?" So since it's all research based, it's not my life whatsoever. It's
Mm-hmm.
more of a group of people discussing the alternative history. So Chat said, "I think that's a great idea. You should do it."
Yeah.
So now I'm going to try to put out a nonfiction book using
Okay.
all of this. Or I could veer off with one of the children's books and knock one of those out in 2 or 3 weeks
Mhm.
using one of the ideas I have.
So you're in
That,
the middle of ideation right now.
yeah, always there.
Yeah,
It
yeah, I know you
doesn't
live
turn
there.
off. I
Yeah, it
live
doesn't turn
there.
off.
It's my house.
Yeah, no, I mean, it feels like you can generate an idea and run with it quickly. It just seems like you once you can plan something out and you can run with it, and you'll fly.
You should be on my Instagram. You wouldn't believe the subjects we get on.
Oh, really?
It's
What kind of
so
like
interesting.
really like what are some of the like where can we find you on Instagram? Because it's one of those things where like I gladly will plug it on. I'll put it on link bio and everything.
Well, it's called Nummosoul, Nummosoul,
Hmm.
because I don't know why it picked such a complicated name, but the Nummo were like they were the gods or the teachers of the Dogon tribe in Africa,
Hmm.
and they gave them a lot of wisdom. And I went into their wisdom and realized that they were telling the same story of the gods and goddesses of Olympia. And then you think, where did they come from? And what if everything is just the past or the present and we're always here on Earth?
Mm-hmm.
So Mars is just our future.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you didn't want to die with your planet? What if you want to time travel and go back to when Earth was more new and you took your technology with you? You'd be a god.
You would. You would. Or a witch. Or a witch if you went to a certain time period.
Exactly. So I
Just
like those ideas.
no, that's a great idea. I love that. I love that. I'm not gonna take it. It's yours. I'm not gonna
Oh,
I'm not
no, no. It's all over Instagram.
okay, okay. No, no, I just feel like you're such a treasure trove of ideas. And it's amazing to see that how many ideas you can just come up with on a regular basis.
I just assume all writers do that.
Truthfully, you'll be surprised how many struggle with ideation.
Oh, I don't. I struggle with one idea at a time.
Yeah, I think my best friend, my best friend struggles with this too. Like he has, like I can focus on one writing project. I can focus. I can just straight line run through it. He bounces between projects.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah. So I mean, he just bounces between projects, and I think but the difference between you and him is you finish your stories. He doesn't get past the outlining phase sometimes. So he's one of
Well,
those writers who loves writing but doesn't do the actual practice of writing.
it helped me to have to write with another. I wrote with a guy who does the moon hoax type
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Did we really go? And he's all scientific. So I wrote the story around what he was doing. And he said, I've never written fiction. I go, well, you're just going to do a diary and change the names of what you usually write, what the astronauts were doing, because you know
Hmm.
all of that and the rocket details. So he wrote a diary of an astronaut, and I wrote around it the grandson who inherited the diary, and now he's being chased down by government officials.
That's a good way to do it. That's always interesting to me how that creativity is flashing. So, looking back, like what are some of the most valuable things you can kind of pass on to writers who are either struggling with the concept of writing a novel or short story, or just who want to get started?
I say one page at a time.
Mhm,
The I was just watching Silo, which was the series Dune that was written a long time ago.
mhm,
The idea of being these people wake up in a silo where their whole life is underground and they have all these rules. Well, how did they get there? Who were the founders and everything? But how he started his was he wrote a short story and he got some traction on that, so he decided to keep going. And he was even offered publishing deals at one point, and he said, no, I want to retain creative license. I mean, now he's published, but he's huge. But he started off with a short story. That's what the advice I'd give is a short story. And do your characters merit any more? Are you curious about anything else they're going to do? If you're not, let it go.
okay. That's a good way to put it because truthfully, I want to kind of share your wisdom because you are someone who's been there, published traditionally, and have you self-published before?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've done both ends of the spectrum. So I want to kind of highlight some of those expertise. But with our last 2 minutes here, I want to give you the floor and kind of let you hype up your work and just where can we find you, Robin?
Oh, well, here's my two solo albums. Oh, you can't see them. My car. And this is the book, the second in a series called Sam's Reptoid Adventure. And I
Okay.
did a series with four kids, two
Hmm.
boys and two girls, and they each take turns having an adventure. And this one is Sam. It goes underground and rescues some Boy Scouts that were captured by the Reptoids. Very Goosebumps or
Yeah.
Animorph type book.
Yeah.
So, and the Dream Lover, that's of course the time travel.
Yep.
Can true love be found in a dream?
Mhm.
And then we had a tragedy of our son, youngest, dying
Oh, sorry to hear that.
tragically 16 years ago. So I told the kid, his friends, I said, they were all 19, and I said,
Mhm.
if you have a dream about him, can you tell me about it? And you'll know the difference. It'll be like you're awake. And they did. And so I recorded them all in here because I found that there's no books really out there that really help. But if you know that your loved one is still speaking to you through everyone else, I mean, it was the most random things, from his hairdresser, seeing a famous psychic, and Tim coming through. And the friends, and it was always the same story. I'm okay, this is what I'm doing. And one group even said, he goes to a party and they said, Tim, how can you be here when you died? He goes, oh, I can do whatever I want. And they said, well, what's it like over there? And he said, it's like here, only better. And that's what I named the book.
Mm-hmm.
So it was such a positive way to look at things.
Wow, you have a wide range of books you've written, and it's incredible. Well, thank you again for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation about the art creativity and just seeing how you work and function and everything like that. So I really appreciate it. I hope you had a good time. I really hope all my guests had a good time on this podcast, because we really just talk literature and pop and just talk shop.
Well, thank you so much. It's so good to meet you, Paul.
It's so good to meet you too. And thank you again for coming on, Robin, and good luck in your next adventure, because I know you're going to have one.
It will be.
All right.